Makeine Too Many Losing Heroines has instantly become a modern classic and was basically the staple of the summer anime season of 2024. This was probably the most hypest show, as not only was the animation beautifully done and it showed just how much effort it was put into this anime, but it also has a very interesting premise that we don't really see too much often when it comes to romance anime. And that is focusing on the rejection part of a romance story. If you have been watching romance anime or just romance in general, you would know that oftentimes when there's multiple people in love with the same person, there's bound to be a winner, but there's also bound to be a loser as well. And after the winner is decided, we primarily focus on them and how the relationship is going now that they become a couple, but we don't focus on the person who lost. We don't focus on what they're going through or what they're dealing with as to what it's like to be rejected and to not be with the person that you love. Oftentimes, series do try to give the rejected person the spotlight for a while, but usually it's only for a couple of chapters or a couple of episodes, and if we're lucky, they do have an entire arc or a mini arc on how that rejected person is doing and what they have been doing since then. And that's exactly what Too Many Losing Heroines does, as we have three characters who are losing heroines, this being Ana Yanami, Lemon, and Komari, three girls who have dealt with their own rejections on the people that they wanted to be with, but sadly they weren't the winners as the people they loved chose someone else. And while oftentimes the series can be funny, insane, and wacky, especially with the personalities that we see and the many insane characters that we get to meet, that's only on the surface level, because once you look things more deeply, Too Many Losing Heroines gives us a harsh reality of how rejection can really affect the person being rejected, not at that moment, but for quite a good while. And it's something that's always going to be stuck in your head for a really long time. Sure, people don't want to be rejected, and people will always want the person that they love to love them back, but reality is that not everyone is going to get the happy ending that they want. And this could especially be true if multiple people like the same person. And all three of the main girls experienced this firsthand, but they wouldn't experience it all alone, as of course our male lead will also be able to witness and see just how much rejection has affected these girls separately in their own moments. And while initially it didn't seem that he really wanted to get too much into the situation or get involved any deeper, that becomes more harder as he starts to spend more time with them and sees just how falling in love can be a blessing but a curse at the same time. The first girl that he will meet that will be the beginning of this journey is none other than Ana Yanami, a childhood friend of a guy named Sosuke who, despite having feelings for him, he has feelings for her best friend who goes by the name of Karen. And while Yanami could have easily made Sosuke all to herself and make sure that his eyes were only for her, once she found out that Sosuke had feelings for Karen, she decided to just simply tell him to go and be honest with how he feels about her and confess to her, making the possibility of them being together go down drastically to 0%. And the person seeing all this was none other than Nukumizu, and after seeing these turn of events, he tries to brush it off, only to be all of a sudden be brought up into this, then none other than Yanami, who decides to trauma dump him on everything that she's facing and everything that she was dealing with Sosuke, which of course leaves Nukumizu at a loss for words and doesn't know how to proceed all of it. But this will be the beginning of the relationship between him and Yanami. And while in the very first episode it seems that Yanami has overcome the rejection as she's acting like herself with her unique personality, in that same episode, this being literally episode 1, we see towards the end how the rejection is starting to kick in and Yanami realizes that she basically lost her chance to be with the guy she loved, which is something that is painfully realistic, as oftentimes when people deal with rejection, they don't process everything until the very end, when they slowly start to realize that they lost and that their feelings couldn't reach the person that they were into. And all throughout the many interactions between Nukumizu and Yanami opens up saying how things have become very different ever since both Sosuke and Karen, her friend, have become a thing. Now, surprising, the dynamic isn't the same as it used to be, and while Yanami still has a friendship with Karen, it's very obvious that the whole thing is eating her up. She becomes more open to Nukumizu, saying how while she's still friends with her, deep down she does have a little bit of resentment for her being the one that Sosuke chose. And even Yanami herself admits that she doesn't want to have this feeling, but it's something that's very difficult to process, and it's something that she's always having whenever she sees the two of them together. And you can't really blame her for having this feeling, as imagine having your friend be the one to be chosen by the person you like instead of you. It's obviously going to make things very awkward and very hard to accept. And that was a situation that Yanami was facing, but it wouldn't be the only one, as due to her and Nukumizu's relationship starting to grow, rumors started to spread around between them, and many people believe that these two were going to become a thing. Although, like any other rumor, there's also going to be a group of people who are not going to be able to comprehend why this rumor is such a thing, as due to Nukumizu to everyone looking like a bland, plain person, they couldn't believe that Yanami would have a relationship with this type of person, since according to everyone, she deserved so much better due to her having the good looks and being popular among the school. Hearing all this, Nukumizu tries to distance himself from Yanami, as he feels that this is the only way to not damage Yanami's reputation any further, not realizing that by doing this, he's slowly rifting the relationship between one another that they've built in such a short amount of time. But this wouldn't be forever, as Sosuke, hearing the rumors, tries to confirm with Nukumizu, and when Yanami gets involved, this is where Sosuke tries to tell her that all he wants is for her to be happy, and if she chose somebody else, then he's completely fine, not reading the room that this is clearly not what Yanami wants to hear, as she still hasn't gotten over the rejection. And this will be the moment where Nukumizu decides to intervene, telling Sosuke that he cannot be the one to wish Yanami happiness, since he's the reason why Yanami is unhappy and has been dealing with a lot of things because of the rejection. And while it seems that things have cooled down, Yanami, due to probably having the feelings bottled up all this time, expresses how she really feels, saying how she hasn't gotten over the rejection, and telling Sosuke to his face that he still is the person that she loves. She still hasn't gotten over him, and that's not going to change for quite a while. And instead of focusing on her, he should be focusing on his girlfriend, and he should be just focusing on her happiness and not worry about who she's into or who she wants to start a relationship with, because that's her own choices to make. And this does give us a good idea that while Yami hasn't gotten over the rejection, she's still not going to let it consume her life, as she's clearly trying to move forward, but at the same time she's still obviously going to have that feeling of being the losing heroine. But that's okay, because she's now trying to move on, and she's going to be focusing on herself, and it's not like she's all alone, as she now has somebody that she can rely on and trust that they'll be there for her in tough times. And moving on from Yanami, we of course have Lemon. Lemon is a very unique character of her own as well, just like Yanami. And just like Yanami, she also has a very upbeat and positive attitude. But of course, just like Yanami, she too had a guy that she was close with ever since they were kids. But unfortunately, just like what happened with Yanami, Lemon also had to deal with losing the guy that she wanted, because the guy who goes by the name of Mitsuki ended up going out with a girl who goes by the name of Asagumo. And while Lemon still tried to be positive, it will be one day when they were all going out that Lemon accidentally confessed to Mitsuki that she had feelings for him, of course making the atmosphere very shocking, as not only did she say this in front of Mitsuki but also his girlfriend, and no surprising, in front of Nukumizu and Yanami. Upon realizing what she has done, she decides to run away from the situation. But upon having a conversation between her and Nukumizu, this is where she opens up how it still hurts. It still hurts that the guy that she loved now is going out with somebody else, and there was nothing she can do about it. And what makes this dilemma even more heartbreaking is that before everything went down, Asagumo actually asked help from Nukumizu and Yanami to find out what Mitsuki's been up to, since it seems that he was doing things behind her back. And of course, she believes that he may be cheating on her. So in order to investigate to see if this is the truth, Nukumizu, Yanami, and Asagumo decide to keep an eye on Mitsuki, and they find out that while Mitsuki was hanging out with somebody, that somebody was Lemon. And as it turns out, Mitsuki was actually looking for advice from Lemon, since due to him not having too much experience with relationships, he wanted to see what else can he do to make sure the relationship between him and his girlfriend is stable and it doesn't go downhill and ends up becoming a mess. And while it may seem at first that Lemon was trying to be a very helpful person to make sure that his relationship stays good, we come to find out in another private conversation between Nukumizu and Lemon that she was hoping to take advantage of this so that maybe, just maybe, even if it's slightly going to happen, that her and Mitsuki can become a thing upon hanging out so often. And while she admitted to this, she hated every single bit because this was not what she wanted to do. She knew that what she was doing was bad and it was going to be something that would probably compromise Mitsuki's trust towards her, and instead of helping him out for the sake of his relationship, she was only helping him out in order to get something beneficial from it, and that is to potentially have a relationship with him at the cost of his happiness and Asagumo's happiness. And that's something that she just simply couldn't understand what she was thinking, but she knows that this was something that she was planning on doing. But that's something that she doesn't want to do, as that's not the person she wants to be. She doesn't want to be the person that ruins other people's relationship just because the person she has fallen for happens to be in that relationship. And this is once again a great reminder just how much love can really make a person do things that they never thought they would ever do. But it's a great reminder that sometimes those feelings are so strong that somebody is willing to do anything in order to get with the person that they love so much. And while they may realize that what they're doing is wrong, their feelings are saying something else, and those feelings are probably clouding their judgment, making them do things that they will probably regret later on. And that's exactly what Lemon was experiencing, as the last thing she wanted was for her to ruin her relationship with Mitsuki, but also to ruin her relationship with Asagumo. But with the help of Nukumizu, she was able to finally give out her honest feelings to Mitsuki when they were both alone, recalling everything that they went through from kids all the way to now, and Lemon reassuring Mitsuki that nothing has changed now that she's been open about her feelings towards him. Of course, while things would have initially been very awkward for them, actually it becomes the opposite, as once everything has settled, Lemon, Mitsuki, and his girlfriend Asugomo are still in good terms, and the relationship hasn't changed even after everything happened, which is completely different from Yanami's case, as with Yanami, she became more distant with Sosuke and Karen. But that's not what happened with Lemon, as despite everything, they still have a friendship with one another, showing us that this outcome can happen if everybody involved comes together and agrees that they should just go forward, and to not let the things that they went through be a hindrance and get in their way of their friendship. And lastly, we of course have to talk about the last girl, Komari, who is completely different from the other two, since the other two were very well at socializing and having good friendships and relationships. Komari was a very different case, as due to her shyness, she had very few friends, and this goes the same with very few interactions with many kinds of people. But there are two people that she greatly had a good time with and was comfortable all the time, this being the president of the literature club, Shintaro, and the vice president, Koto, who despite her shy demeanor, she was still able to get along with these two very well. And unsurprisingly, just like the other two girls, she too had feelings for a guy, this of course being Shintaro. But unlike the other girls, she had a limited time, as due to Shintaro being in third year, this will make him the final year that he had in the school, making Komari realize that she has limited time and that she has to act now. And that's exactly what she does during a camping trip. She decides to say her feelings to him during this trip. And while at first it seemed that Komari had the upper hand and it seemed that potentially she could be with the person she loved, that came crashing down when of course he ended up being with the vice president, Koto, thus shattering Komari's dreams of them becoming a thing. And just like Yanami and Lemon, she too was going to have to go through the hardships of rejection. But this wouldn't be the only problem that Komari will face, as once again, due to Shintaro and the vice president being third years, that will mean that the literature club is going to have somebody else as president and be in charge of it. And because Komari was basically the person they could deeply trust, they decided to have faith that she would be the one to take over the literature club. The only problem is that due to Komari having no confidence in herself and her lack of social skills, she doesn't know if she's able to be president of the club, and she asks Nukumizu for help to get ready for the next step of her life. The only issue is that even with Nukumizu's help, Komari was still having troubles. She still didn't know how to still properly communicate with people, and when almost came time for her to be introduced as the new president, Nukumizu decided to make a choice, telling her that he would be the one to be president of the literature club, something that didn't sit right with Komari, as it seemed that he lost faith in her and he believed that she wasn't ready for this task. causing tension between the two, and Komari still being determined to be the one to be the president of the literature club. But when she starts to really have a hard time introducing herself and stating that she will be the next president, Nukumizu, knowing that this choice is probably going to hurt Komari, decides to be the one to be president of the club. This action alone hurt Komari even more, as not only did it seem that Nukumizu wasn't considerate of her feelings, but it seemed that he just basically lost confidence in her. And while you can understand where she's coming from or what she was probably feeling in this moment, you can also argue that Nukumizu was doing it for her sake. He knew that she was in trouble, and had he not done what he did, the literature club could have been in danger. But he too knows that this decision was very hard to make, and he knew that he would look bad, which is why he decides to try to find Komari and talk to her once again. And it's here that we get to truly understand what Komari's fears are and what she was having trouble dealing with on her own. And that is the fear of being alone. Komari did not want to be alone. She felt that with the president and the vice president going away very soon, she wasn't going to have anybody she can rely on. Not to mention that she was still hurting after the rejection, as once again, it's not something that just goes by very quickly. Komari was still dealing with that whole situation, so it's very obvious that a lot of things were just in Komari's life that she couldn't handle, and she felt that she was going to be facing by herself. She knows that she doesn't have the greatest social skills, she knows of her shy demeanor, and she knows it very well because she's experienced it all throughout her life. And because of that, she wondered what she would do now that the two people that she felt most comfortable with are going away. But Nukumizu reminds her that she's not alone. She not only has him, but she also has Lemon and Yanami, who despite their different personalities, completely different from her, they are still two people that care about her and are going to treat her as a friend and will be there for her. Not only was this a great moment for Komari to realize that she is not in fact alone, and that all this time she made new friends even if she didn't realize it, but this is also a great moment for Nukumizu because now that he's now involved with the literature club and with the rest of the girls, he no longer is bothered by it, whereas beforehand he tried to make sure that he wasn't involved anymore with the girls' problems. Now he doesn't mind it because he too has grown up thanks to these girls, as not only have they become part of his life, but they also impacted it in a positive way. Beforehand, he used to always have a very boring, dull life with nothing special happening, but ever since he met all of them, his life has taken an interesting turn. And of course, this is not the end, but the beginning of something new happening, as who knows, there may be more things that he will experience thanks to the girls. And as shown at the final episode, maybe there's someone in this group that has opened certain feelings, and it's only a matter of time when something will happen between them. But for now, that's the end of Too Many Losing Heroines, a story that was able to be funny, emotional, heartbreaking, stunning, and simply beautiful, not just in the artwork, the animation, but also just the voice acting and the pacing of this series. It had everything. And I know oftentimes people say this with a lot of romance series that turn out to be really great masterpieces or just really good overall, but even if you're not a romance fan, you are going to enjoy this series. Like, I guarantee you, this is probably going to be the series that even if you're not into romance stories, you're probably going to enjoy it from beginning to end, as not only is it taking a different approach from what you normally see in romance stories, but you can also relate to many of the characters who are dealing with rejection or had experienced it, as at some point in anyone's life, rejection is bound to happen. And whether or not it affects you, it's up to you, but it is still something that you can never forget, and it certainly is an experience that you're going to face when it happens, that it might take a little time for you to process what just happened, but it's how you deal with it that matters the most. And that's where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.